All right, let's dive in. Today we're looking at MicroStrategy. They've kind of gone all in on Bitcoin, like really all in. They're using company funds, even taking on debt to buy it. So we're going to dig into some serious financial analysis and trying to figure out if this is pure genius or a total disaster waiting to happen.
Should be interesting.
Yeah, for sure. So MicroStrategy, this isn't some new company, right?
Nope, definitely not. They've been around, a big player in the business intelligence software world since back in 1989, actually.
Wow, that's a while.
Yeah. But what's really got everyone's attention is this shift they've made recently, holding Bitcoin, like a lot of it, as a primary treasury reserve asset, almost like they're treating it as, I don't know, like digital gold or something.
So they're basically saying, forget cash. We're betting on Bitcoin.
Pretty much, yeah. And they're not messing around. As of, let's see, September 2024, they were holding, get this, over 252,220 Bitcoins.
Wow, that's, I don't even know what to compare that to.
It's massive. Think about it this way. That's more than 81% of all the Bitcoin held by public companies combined.
All right, so huge stash of Bitcoin. Got it.
Yeah.
But you mentioned something earlier, digital asset moat. What's that all about?
Okay, so imagine a castle. Got this huge moat around it, right? Super hard to attack. Well, MicroStrategy, they've basically built their own moat, but instead of water, it's Bitcoin. Makes it incredibly tough for any other company to just come along and do the same thing. Buy up that much Bitcoin. Good luck.
So they're protected by their giant pile of Bitcoin.
You could see it that way, yeah. It's a barrier to entry for sure.
Okay, I get it. But let's play devil's advocate for a sec. What if, and I know this is a big what if, but what if the price of Bitcoin just tanks? Could that moat become more like a, I don't know, a trap?
You're hitting the nail on the head. That's the big risk here. Their stock price, it's tied pretty closely to how Bitcoin's doing, if Bitcoin crashes.
So does their stock.
Potentially, yeah. And we're talking potentially wiping out a ton of value.
Yikes. High stakes. But wait, they haven't completely abandoned their software business.
Yeah.
Right. They're still doing that stuff too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. They still make money from their software and services. They've got products like, let me see, MicroStrategy One. It's a cloud analytics platform. And HyperIntelligence. That one gives users real-time insights.
Okay, so it's not all Bitcoin all the time.
Yeah.
That has to provide some stability, right? Some balance.
Up to a point, yeah. Their software revenue, it's been pretty stable. But you got to keep in mind the money they could make or lose from Bitcoin, it dwarfs the software side of things.
So even if the software is doing great, Bitcoin could still just overshadow everything.
Exactly. Plus, and this is a big plus, they're not exactly playing in an empty field. The business intelligence market. Super competitive. Giants in there. Microsoft, Tableau.
Yeah, those are some big names.
Yeah.
So basically they're fighting giants on one side and riding a crypto roller coaster on the other.
That's one way to put it.
So with all that going on, who's calling the shots? Who's making these big decisions?
So you've got Michael Saylor. He's the executive chairman. He's a big Bitcoin believer in pushing this strategy hard. And then there's Song Lei, the CEO. He's more the numbers guy. Strong financial background.
So big picture Bitcoin enthusiast and a finance pro. Sounds like an interesting team. What kind of moves are they making?
One of their key strategies has been diluting equity. Basically, they're issuing more stock.
To buy more Bitcoin.
Yep, exactly. The idea is if their stock is worth more than their Bitcoin, doing this can actually make each share more valuable. It's all about this thing they call the market value premium rate.
Hold on, let me get this straight. They're creating more shares to buy more Bitcoin. How does that benefit, the people who already own stock?
Think of it this way. If Bitcoin goes up, the value of those new shares and the old ones should also go up. It's a way to kind of leverage the gains. The hope is that it all goes up together.
Okay, but that's a big if.
Huge if. If Bitcoin drops, the value of each share drops too. So yeah, risky move. High risk, high reward, as they say.
Right, so everything hinges on Bitcoin going up. And what about debt? I've heard they've taken on quite a bit to buy all this Bitcoin.
Oh yeah, that's another layer to this whole thing. As of 2024, they were over $4 billion in debt.
$4 billion? That's a lot of debt.
Yeah, it's a lot. And it's tied to this very volatile asset, cryptocurrency. So that's a big concern.
Because if Bitcoin crashes,
they've got this mountain of debt to deal with. Could be really tough to manage.
It sounds like they're walking a tightrope, to say the least.
Yeah, definitely a lot of risk involved. But there's also potential for big rewards. It's a fascinating situation, to say the least. We've covered a lot of ground, but there's still more to dig into.
Okay, so we've talked about their history, their crazy Bitcoin strategy, the management team, the risks. What's next?
Well, next we got to take a deeper look at their financials, their customer base, and how the market is reacting to all of this. There's a lot to unpack here, lots of moving pieces. We need to figure out how they all fit together if we want to know if MicroStrategy is truly onto something big or, well, headed for disaster.
All right, then. Sounds like we've got our work cut out for us. Stay tuned, folks. We're just getting started. Okay, so we're back. Still digging into MicroStrategy and their Bitcoin adventure. So far, it's been a wild ride, right? We've talked about their history, I guess you could call it a bold strategy, the good, the bad, the risky. But before we jump back into all the financial stuff, I'm curious about their customers. Like, who are these people actually using MicroStrategy's products?
Yeah, good point. All this Bitcoin talk, you almost forget they still got to run a software business.
Right.
Well, they've got a pretty diverse customer base, actually, different industries. But they're especially strong in, like, the computer software and IT services world. Think big companies, the kind that really need to crunch data to make decisions.
Makes sense. So these are customers who are already, comfortable with tech, with new ideas. Do you think that makes them more, I don't know, open to MicroStrategy's whole Bitcoin thing?
It's possible, yeah. These are companies that, they understand the power of disruption. Plus, MicroStrategy, they've built up a good reputation over the years. Customers tend to stick with them.
That's got to be tough in the tech world. Things change so fast.
It is, yeah. But they consistently get good ratings, high customer satisfaction.
Interesting. But wouldn't some customers maybe, I don't know, be hesitant to work with a company that's, taking this big gamble on Bitcoin? It is volatile, after all.
There's always a risk, right? When you do something bold, some people aren't going to like it. But MicroStrategy's been pretty clear. They're still focused on delivering value to their customers. Still all about those analytics tools, helping businesses make better decisions, improve customer experience.
So from their perspective, the message is, hey, we're still the same reliable software company. We just also happen to have a ton of Bitcoin.
Pretty much. And hey, for some customers, that might even be a plus. Makes them look forward-thinking, embracing the future, all that.
Okay, I can see that. All right, let's zoom out a bit. Look at the bigger picture. How's the market reacting to all this? Are investors loving it, hating it, somewhere in between?
I think, as you might expect, it really depends on how people feel about Bitcoin. When Bitcoin's doing well, investors, they get excited about MicroStrategy, see it as a way to, get in on the action, stock price goes up.
But when Bitcoin dips,
things get a little shaky.
to say the least.
Yeah, definitely. Their stock, it kind of mirrors Bitcoin's movements. Up, down, a bit of a roller coaster.
But with a lot more money involved.
A lot more. But even with all the ups and downs, they still have a pretty big market cap. As of January 2025, they were ranked 260th globally. Over $71 billion.
Wow, clearly people are still buying into their vision, at least for now. But are they buying into, MicroStrategy, the company, or just MicroStrategy as a way to get exposure to Bitcoin?
That's the question, isn't it? And that's where things get, a little tricky. There have been times when, the market's perception of MicroStrategy hasn't quite lined up with how the company's actually doing.
So, investors are so focused on the Bitcoin that they're not really paying attention to the software side?
It can happen, yeah. And we've seen it particularly with these things called ETFs. Exchange-traded funds.
Hold on, back up. For those of us who, don't spend all day on Wall Street, what's an ETF?
Think of it like a basket of stocks, but you can buy it as one unit. It bundles a bunch of assets together. It could be companies, bonds, all sorts of things. In this case, you've got ETFs that specifically track companies in a certain sector, like companies doing stuff with Bitcoin.
So it's a way to diversify without buying a bunch of individual stuff.
Exactly, yeah. But here's the thing. With MicroStrategy, some of these ETFs, they haven't always tracked the company's performance very accurately. There have been some pretty big tracking errors. Meaning, even if MicroStrategy's software business is doing well, if Bitcoin is down, the ETF might not reflect that. It could be showing a loss, even if the company is actually profitable.
That seems a little misleading.
It can be, yeah. It just emphasizes how important it is to, do your research. Don't just rely on the hype or what an ETF is doing. Look at the company's financials. Understand their long-term prospects.
Good advice for any investment, really.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back to MicroStrategy's debt for a minute. We touched on it earlier, but I think it's worth digging a little deeper. How much are we talking about here, and how are they managing it?
Yeah, the debt, it's definitely been a hot topic, over $4 billion in recent years. And That's a lot. Now, so far, they've been able to, keep up with payments and all that. But if Bitcoin takes a big hit,
Could be trouble.
yeah, big trouble.
Yeah.
If their Bitcoin holdings lose value, they could have a really hard time paying back that debt. Puts the whole company at risk.
So that's a high-stakes game for sure.
High stakes, yeah. But hey, even with all the focus on Bitcoin, they still have a software company to run, right?
Can't forget about that.
Nope. And how well that business does, it's a big factor in their overall financial health. So investors, they need to be looking at both sides. The Bitcoin strategy, sure, but also their ability to compete in the software market.
Because we're up against some tough competition.
Oh yeah, Microsoft, Tableau, those are big players. And there's always the concern that, all this focus on Bitcoin, maybe it's distracting them, taking resources away from the software.
Yeah, tough to balance for sure. Got to stay ahead in the software world while also, riding this crypto wave. Which I guess brings us to a bigger question. How does MicroStrategy fit into this whole, this changing landscape of finance and tech?
Well, we're in the middle of a financial revolution, right? Tech's changing everything. Consumer preferences are changing. And then you've got these new things like cryptocurrencies shaking things up even more. MicroStrategy, they're right in the middle of all that.
They're not shying away from it, that's for sure. But is this Bitcoin strategy, is it like a preview of the future of finance? Or is it just, a risky gamble that could blow up in their face?
It's definitely got people talking, that's for sure. They've challenged the way we think about corporate finance, started a conversation about, what role do cryptocurrencies play in the future of money? Like it or hate it, they've got people paying attention to digital assets.
So whether they succeed or fail, they've made an impact.
Yeah, you could say that. They've become a case study in how these disruptive technologies can reshape entire industries.
But it's not a simple story, is it? Their future, it's not exactly clear. Crypto, it's always changing. Regulations are changing. Competition is fierce.
Exactly. I think we can expect a lot more twists and turns for MicroStrategy in the years to come.
So even if you're not, planning to invest in MicroStrategy or even that interested in Bitcoin, there's still a lot to learn from their story. It shows how powerful technology can be, how risky it can be to bet on something new, how important it is to adapt.
It reminds us that, the world of finance, it's not just those old banks and institutions anymore. New players are coming in, new rules are being written, and the future of money, well, that's still being figured out.
It's an exciting time, a little scary maybe, but definitely not boring.
Yeah.
All right, that's it for part 2 of our deep dive into MicroStrategy. But we're not done yet. Come back for part 3, where we'll wrap things up and talk about what all of this means for you, whether you're an investor, just an observer, whoever you are, there's something here for everyone. All right, we're back. Final part of our deep dive into MicroStrategy. We've been through a lot. Software, Bitcoin, risk, reward, the whole shebang. But now I think it's time to kind of shift gears a bit. Talk about what this all means for you, whether you're thinking about investing or you just love tech, or maybe you're just curious about, the future of money. There's a lot we can take away from this whole MicroStrategy story. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it really shows you how powerful these disruptive technologies can be. MicroStrategy, they're not a new company, but they've totally reinvented themselves. They saw this opportunity, this whole Bitcoin thing, and they just went for it. Didn't let anyone tell them it was crazy.
It's kind of inspiring in a way. It shows that anything's possible. You can adapt, take risks, and sometimes those risks, well, they pay off big time.
Right. But, and this is a big but, their story also shows you what can happen when you bet big on something that's, as unpredictable as Bitcoin. The volatility, the risk. It's all there, and with all that debt they've taken on.
Yeah, that definitely adds another layer of complication, let's say.
Definitely. They've attracted a lot of investors who are excited about crypto, but they've also raised some eyebrows. People are wondering, are they putting too much emphasis on Bitcoin? What about their core software business?
Right. Are they still a software company that just happens to own a lot of Bitcoin? Or are they becoming something else, something riskier?
That's the million-dollar question, and honestly, I think the answer will determine their future. Will they be able to balance both sides? Only time will tell.
So let's say someone's listening to this thinking, okay, maybe I should invest in MicroStrategy. What are the big things they should be thinking about?
First thing, and I can't stress this enough, they got to understand their own risk tolerance. MicroStrategy, this is not a safe, predictable investment. It's volatile, it's tied to crypto, and things can change really fast.
So if you're looking for something stable, put your money in, index funds or something.
Right. But if you believe in Bitcoin, if you're okay with high risk, then maybe, just maybe, MicroStrategy is worth a look. But do your homework. Don't just jump in blindly because it sounds exciting.
Exactly. Understand the company, understand their strategy, understand the potential downsides.
And, even beyond individual investors, MicroStrategy, they've started this whole conversation
Yeah.
about corporate finance, about digital assets.
They're kind of like a real-life experiment, you know? The whole world's watching to see what happens. Will their big bet pay off, or will it all come crashing down?
And the outcome, it could have a ripple effect. It could change how other companies view crypto, how governments regulate it. It could change how we all think about money.
It's a big deal. And it reminds us that we're living in, I don't know, like a really transformative time. Finance is changing, tech's changing everything, and companies like MicroStrategy, well, they're leading the charge.
For better or for worse, they're definitely shaking things up. Whether they succeed or fail, I think we can all learn from their story.
Absolutely. All right, so as we wrap up our deep dive into MicroStrategy, I think the big takeaway is this. It's more than just a company buying Bitcoin. It's about the future of finance, about innovation, about taking risks, and adapting to a world that's changing faster than ever. It's been a wild ride, and who knows what the future holds for MicroStrategy. But hey, that's what makes it so fascinating, right?
Definitely keeps things interesting.
So thanks for joining us on this journey. Hopefully you learned a thing or two, maybe even got inspired. And hey, remember, the more you know about this stuff, the better prepared you'll be for whatever comes next. Because one thing's for sure, the future of finance, it's going to be anything but boring.